sir. It's 7:01, and it's Monday night, June 20th, 2016.
7:01?
7:01.
Didn't I say 5:01?
You said 7.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Which
Gosh.
case I'm
You
reading.
gonna say, oh my
Just
God.
came from a 2-hour meeting. I'm not here yet. This is a special board meeting tonight. And you can do the presents. So I'm calling the meeting to order, and the clerk will do the roll.
Trustee Truscott is absent, excused. Trustee LaRue,
Here.
Trustee Pompo,
Here.
Trustee Marks,
Present.
Treasurer Johnson,
Here.
Clerk retires here, and Supervisor Durant.
He's here.
Staff present is Manager Gerard, and our Civil Counsel Roger Zappa's here, and our Planning Commission Chair and Realtor Steve Pelto is here.
Thanks, Randy. Any public comment before we get started?
Approval of the agenda.
Oh, gosh.
I'll make a motion to approve the
I
agenda.
need to go out and come back in? I'm sorry. Still in another world. Okay, motion and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approve of the agenda. Now we have public comment. Anybody would like to? Steve, sure.
Good evening, Steve Pelto, Book Realty, 1900 Presque Isle. We have a purchase agreement in front of you from the Viridia Group. I feel it's a very fair offer. It's $430,000. There's a few things that I'd like to add. I'm representing you, of course, as a township. Bob is representing himself as Viridia Group. As I said, first of all, I feel the price is very fair. We only had a package price. We didn't have an exact price, so it's not like we're coming off a price or anything else. We have the one whole package, which was 1.3, but 430 I think is very fair for the 5-acre parcel. There are a couple things or a couple conditions that you may want to look at. One is on page 3, which is under number 5, and again, this is something Bob can address, where he has the seller paying for the Alta survey. If there is a survey, a lot of times, or most of the time, it is the buyer that is responsible for the Alta survey. That is one of the things, the due diligence, that's something that that he's going to go through. He's probably working with a client, I'm guessing, but Bob will fill you in on that. What he does have to do is due diligence, and I think his time frame is fine also. He has the 60-day due diligence period. Another thing that we may want to keep in mind, and I want to talk, and again, I haven't talked to Bob about this, it's just something that's recently come up, is there is an easement behind the property for the back properties getting into the Goodwill, the Starbucks and that. And I don't know how you want to address that, but I just want to keep that in your minds to see, as we're addressing this purchase agreement, if that's something we can continue to keep, if Bob is willing to keep that easement, just for the ease of the people getting to and from, those back areas also. So those are the things that I wanted to bring up. I know, and I haven't talked to Bob, and again, I'm just throwing this out. There is, like I said, there was a purchase agreement that we're still in the works on the other property across the street. Those people are having problems right now. Randy and I met with them last week. What we thought we were selling them, we don't quite have what we thought we had. There is a road easement issues, so they're actually getting less property than they thought they were going to get. And especially the maps that were given to them, not only by myself, but that was in the appraisal. So it wasn't something that's the township's or anybody's fault. It was something that was given to them, like I said, in good faith. And they're actually getting less property, and they're trying to figure out if they can have enough room for parking. That's the main thing. And again, that's a question that's not contingent upon, but maybe something Bob can address, if there's a way that we can reserve maybe a spot, if there is a parking area, that we can maintain an 8 to 10 parking spots. I think that's what Randy, if I'm not mistaken, when they said they might be short at the last meeting that we had. So that's something to keep in mind also. Again, I'm not asking you to put this on Viridia Group, but maybe we can offer that or ask Bob if he would entertain something like that also. So those are just my thoughts. I'll let Bob come up, or Michelle, and talk some more.
Thanks, Steve.
Hello, Bob Mahaney, 310 Lake Enchantment Road, Marquette Township. Here representing the Viridia Group of 857 West Washington Street, Marquette City. I guess I'm really here to answer any questions you might have. You have our purchase agreement in front of you, and we tried to make that comprehensive and in order to avoid any, questions or any gray areas. I'm glad Steve brought up the comment about the survey. I think in our experience in the commercial real estate sector, especially when you're getting into larger tracts of land and parcel, typically our experience has been that the seller does provide an Alta survey, and in fact we ourselves have done that on a number of transactions recently where we've been the seller. So our standpoint is that is typically a requirement of a seller in a commercial real estate transaction. It's even more critical than in a residential transaction that you make sure as a buyer that you're getting precisely what the seller represents, that you're getting as far as land area and what improvements might be on that property. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Michelle, do you have something you wanted to add, or should we go to questions?
I'd much rather have our attorney walk us through this at this point in time.
Well, I figured it's still
John?
kind of public comment, so I didn't know if she wanted to add anything. Okay.
John?
Board member, do we have to do separate board member comment? Because we can't really say anything other than what's on the agenda, so we can just get into this, can't we? The unfinished business?
Well, the board member comment would be to rebut any issues at the public comment.
Okay, but we need to just talk about that.
But if they don't have any comments, then we go right to the agenda item.
Okay, John, you were first.
For the Vita Group, I would ask what the wisdom was of putting in on page 6, item 8. It's the waiver of connection fees, and it's almost in perpetuity you expect us to entertain granting that kind of a waiver. I'd like to hear something about what motivated you folks to put that in.
The rationale behind that was, frankly, to try to...
You have to use the mic, Bob, please.
It's a good question. I'm glad you brought it up, because it was something that we thought very consciously about. By our estimate, basically what it comes down to is we're trying to incent the owner to develop. Right now, the total township impact fees on this parcel, if we were to develop it to what we think is its maximum potential, could be in the 6 figures. We didn't address timeframes in our purchase agreement, so I acknowledge that part of your statement. As far as why waive the impact fees, as I said, to incentivize us. From our perspective, the sooner that we develop something on this property, if it's township owned right now, I would assume it's generating zero tax revenue for the township. If we can get something built on that, I'm not an expert on township tax assessments and calculations and the like, but I would venture to guess that the tax revenue, the property tax revenue that would be generated will make it a worthwhile investment for the township to waive those fees.
And that's it?
That's pretty much it. The township's impact fees are significantly higher than what we experience elsewhere locally.
Thank you.
Pete, did you have?
Is there any problem with this as far as property like we have on the other corner? Randy, is there any difference in where the boundary lines and stuff like that, we got problem with the other side?
No,
This was a clear?
The issue on the other property,
Your mic already.
the issue on the other property comes from the realignment of the county road
Road, right.
and what their actual right-of-way is now. And there's some dispute as to what that right-of-way actually is.
And the service road will be staying there?
Well,
That was what Steve had
Right.
brought up in discussion.
yeah, and that's a good thing to discuss, because our intent was to have that road stay there so that everybody could use it. And we were gonna keep ownership, and, you know, whether we kept that property, we had talked at one point about having that even be our trash pickup site so that we could keep that road. And I, you know, talked to Randy this year about making sure we had all those holes covered up and keeping it in good shape so people could use it, so. Whether that's, I mean, that's up to the board if we think we want to try to keep it. We talked about paving it in the future or having it at least in better shape so that it can be plowed. Dan?
Well, our intent, I think, always was to keep that road. We paid $55,000 to develop that road, and I don't want to see it just disappear. The whole purpose of that was to have access. It's the same thing we're battling on the north side of 41. So nothing's different from the south side of 41. If we could have got something to Walmart, it would have been really great, but unfortunately we couldn't. So we got it at least up to the Walmart area so that people can have access on the backside without going on a highway. That was, again, that was the whole reasoning for that road. Otherwise, why would we have paid $55,000 to put it in?
Anything else on that? People have got notes in their, on their contracts. Roger, do you want to go through it then, and, excuse me, I'm sorry. Do you have comments, suggestions?
Well, since you've already discussed paragraph 8, I don't think that's going to withstand scrutiny just from a legal standpoint. You generally don't have the authority to
That's what I put in
engage
my
in
notes.
selective preferential treatment on something like that. There are a few relatively minor terms that are more in the nature of business decisions in terms of the township than they are legal issues. You will have to decide, for example, if you want to pay for a survey when you still have basically an out in the contract. That, and again, that's not a legal issue, but as long as the board understands that you could end up paying for a survey and then the whole thing may end up being a null and void contract, that it may not go through. That's a business decision, that's not a legal issue, but I wouldn't be being complete unless I pointed that out. I guess there are a couple of you know, it comes up several times that the real property shall have legal access. It's on a public road. I guess I'm not sure what that concern is exactly. It's on a corner, essentially. But if there's information that someone has that it doesn't, I mean, that's a repetitive theme here. I have a little bit of an issue on the language in paragraph 17 regarding liquidated damages. They're not comparable for the purchaser and seller. That's an easy fix, which I could come back with a proposal on something along those lines. There's also in paragraph 19, I had a large question mark in terms of seller may initiate and/or consummate a like-kind exchange. I'm not aware of any exchange provisions that this board has ever discussed, so I guess you may want to ask some clarification. There are some significant legal ramifications that could come up if you're going to be talking about an exchange, including responsibility for commissions and so forth. You're still going to have those responsibilities and expenses if you're going to have a like-kind exchange as is being discussed in paragraph 19.
Roger?
Yeah.
I think on that, though, it said the seller. I think it might have been a boilerplate. It says the seller, not the buyer for a temporary contract. Should have been the buyer. Oh, it says seller, okay. That's our mistake. Okay. Well, you know I read it, so.
Okay.
So that should be changed to buyer,
It should have been buyer.
not seller.
Obviously, the township.
Right, no, I'm familiar with 1031s to some extent, and it wasn't intuitive from me reading paragraph 19 that that's all that was being discussed. There was an inference, at least, that the township may be receiving property as part of this transaction,
No, it would not.
and
Bob
okay,
has a piece
enough
of
said,
property they sell. Yeah.
enough said.
It's just a wording for problem.
And all the places it says
Not-
seller in that paragraph should be buyer.
It should say seller understands that purchaser may initiate enterprise made like kind exchange.
Yeah, it's just a typo.
You have the two, reversed.
Well, that's what I was wondering as one option or
It's a good
scenario.
point. It's a good point, but I
Um,
thought it-
Okay.
But that would not cost, just for clarification, that would not cost the township any money. I'm looking out for you. I've done 1031s before, and it's not costing you any money. Go all about. What he's doing is selling another piece of property, purchasing this, he's taking that money from the other transaction, and putting it toward the set.
And then finally, just from the legal issues, you get to point, paragraph 22, indicating that purchaser may assign its interest in this agreement without seller's written consent. More often than not, that's going to be with seller's written consent. And we sometimes put in boilerplate language that says that consent will be freely granted, won't be unreasonably withheld, but I believe that just where this is, and the township is more than likely going to want to have the right to consent or not consent. That would be pretty standard on at least municipal transactions. Again, I don't perceive those as being tremendously controversial. Let's see here, from the township's perspective. And I guess I would open the door then in case the board had specific questions in terms of what does this mean, or what ramification would this have, or what impact would this have, rather than me rambling through every paragraph and saying this is pretty standard or is not pretty standard. If there are specific things that raised your inquiry, I'd be happy to try to address those.
Anybody have anything for Roger? Go ahead, feel free. John, do you have a comment?
Well, my only comment would be that I would ask that on page 6, item 8 would be deleted. To me, it's an insult to our intelligence to have that in there.
Your process would be, if there are things that you want to address, is you can make a counter proposal. And that's the routine. And that might be, again, the number that's being offered is not in any way, shape, or form a legal issue. That's a business decision. But just as you might go back with a different number, you can then go back with a proposal that would have some minor revisions to the terms in a counter proposal.
Roger, do we, that was one of the things that I highlighted too. Do we even have the authority to waive enterprise fees?
Probably
You do
not.
under your ordinance. I don't think your ordinance allows it.
That's a total.
Well, and you get into, it's beyond just the ordinance. You get into some real constitutional issues of equal protection and due process and treating all of your applicants equally and so forth.
Because it's not like we're a business, being a government entity, we've got other stuff to.
Well, and the answer might be different if this was going to be a development that was being done for the township or even for the DDA. For example, the DDA over the years has done some development and some projects, including where we sit right now. But when this isn't being done, isn't a township project, I have some very grave concerns about that.
That was my biggest. Anything else for Roger?
On number 15C. Sure, we use that property for trash pickup and everything else, but to me, we cleaned it up at one time. What's happening there, we don't have any idea at this point in time, and that. So, what's there is there, and that,
I think with that, you would have to set a date. You know, if you were assuming this, that as of a certain date, the property changes ownership, and after that, you would not be responsible. But you'd clean it at that point. You're right, people are still dumping things there.
we keep cleaning it up.
Yep, we keep cleaning it up.
Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt here, but one other minor item that I had a note on is in paragraph 6, under warranties and representations of seller, A10. Seller represents that execution of this agreement by seller will not give rise to any causes of action. That's kind of impossible to predict. You could rephrase that along the lines that to the best of the knowledge, your best knowledge and information that you have, that you aren't aware of anything that would give rise to a claim, but it's basically legally impossible to predict. Nobody has a crystal ball on what may come up. So I would propose a minor rewording on that one as well.
Chair?
Yes, sir.
I know there was a question as far as on the survey, maybe to alleviate maybe an issue. If in fact you are going to agree to the survey, you would put that if by some chance the purchaser backs out, that cost will be paid out of the earnest money deposit, which is $10,000, which will more than cover for that out the survey. So that way the township is not holding the bag on having a survey. So if he backs out, he will lose that money for the survey. That could be conditional.
So, I think the price is a little bit, something that a couple board members wanted to talk about. I don't know if I'm gonna have a coughing fit. What's the best way to do this, Roger, for, making our proposal? Do we need to?
Can I ask one more question before we get to the price?
Sure.
I still like to know what where we're going with the access road.
Well, and that's kind of where I was going.
Oh, okay, sorry.
No, it'll make it worse, actually. Do we need to do deliberating and making recommendations to you now that you would do and come back? Or do we do a work session? How do we determine how we feel this should happen?
You should probably come to a general consensus on all of the terms. Then get those to me, and that was part of the idea, I guess, to expedite things of having you here, so I get the context of what it is you're discussing or where you're at, because then I can very quickly incorporate that into something. And I confess, I glanced through this fairly quickly. I would go through it again with a finer tooth comb perhaps, but those were the big things. So you would have some discussion. You can treat it as a work session, or you can, you can deliberate at work sessions, but then you need to get it to Mr. Pelto and or me in terms of conveying that back quickly.
So are there items that we want to try to get consensus on here? Do we want to try to have a work session and bring red pens and
Well, let me back up. When I was saying work session, I mean, you can treat this as your work session. You can be deliberating
That's why
on
I
this.
wondered if
Yeah,
if this is the best.
This is the time to at least start talking about the major points that that you feel are important, right?
So you want to start with the road? I forget which point that was.
It wasn't a point, it's just a point.
The finding.
I thought I remembered seeing it in here something. Maybe not.
Not directly, it's indirectly invested.
It was, I overlooked it.
Maybe you should probably talk to the potential purchaser and see if it's his what you're doing.
Would be 6B, 6, 5. I think somewhere in this vicinity.
Well, maybe we can wait to see what Mr. Mahaney's got to say about the road.
Did you have a thought, Bob, on what you wanted or didn't want to do with the road? What was your?
I have several thoughts after hearing first of all, the survey, I guess I find a little ironic that I think it's in the township's best interest to get a survey done and not quibble over this on paper, but you're dealing with a situation across the street right now where you've got an inaccurate survey. Apparently, or a representation was made to a prospective buyer that they were buying something that's different than what they're actually would be buying, and you can see the ramifications it has on the ability to close on a transaction. That's why when we sell something, we get a survey right away so that we can represent with 100% confidence that we're selling what we claim we're selling. All right? We're not trying to nickel and dime the township here. It's just prudent in this circumstance. With respect to Article 8 about waiver of impact fees, I guess everybody's entitled to their opinion, but $100,000 is a lot of money to me. And we've done a number of transactions where we've worked with municipalities where these fees have been waived. I'm not an attorney. I'm not questioning Mr. Zappa's judgment or anything on that, but I would suggest that maybe we look towards ways that we can mitigate those fees, because we, sincerely do want to develop something there. Those fees are an obstacle. An equally greater obstacle, and frankly, something that's got me more concerned now than before I came into this room tonight, is this road and this easement. And I'm just doing a rough calculation. I suspect, is that a 66-foot wide easement?
It's only like
Driveway.
It's the drive, I think it's 33. I don't
It was
think
permitted as a driveway.
Is it?
It's a driveway, not a street, right?
Yeah, not a regular
Okay,
road.
all right. My point is, when you factor in the setbacks and everything else that we got to contend with under the township zoning laws and having that there, I'm not saying that we're opposed to keeping it there, but it does impact the developability of the surrounding, of the remaining property there. Reality situation is, this property butts up on the west end against a retaining wall of Walmart's and their auto center. And we're gonna have to leave a decent buffer there for all practical intents and purposes, probably above and beyond the setback requirements of the township, just because it's not very sightly. And we're gonna have to probably try to do the same along the north side. We're gonna have to do something to clean that up and make it look more attractive. If the road stays, we're not opposed to that. One of the dangers that we had, and Exhibit A, I would submit, is right down on the lake shore in the city of Marquette. If you stick infrastructure in before you have a master plan of what you're going to do with the broader property, you end up limiting yourself, and the actual development that you get on that property can be severely constricted. I think a good solution might be really what you're trying to do is get access from 492 into the Goodwill, Michael's Pier 1, that center, correct? There might be a way to do that that's requires less raw acreage than the way it's configured right now. I appreciate that you put money into this road. So what I'm suggesting is there might be an alternative route that allows us to develop, to maximize the development, yet at the same time provide that access. The last thing I wanted to mention with respect to Mr. Zappa's comment about why the public access is in there in our due diligence requirements, it's because we actually have encountered situations where there's a street right there, but we can't get access, we can't get legal access in for a driveway. It hasn't happened here, but it has happened in other locations. And if it's a county road, my understanding is that the county is the one that tells us whether or not we can have an access drive. And they're gonna look at things like, setbacks from corners and things of that nature. So we just wanna be sure that we have adequate access in. That's all we're trying to do.
So you're kind of thinking you would want to use that to get to your property or build up and cover it up? What was the driveway?
Well,
I'd almost call it an alley.
we've done a couple of scenarios. One scenario that I think is worth exploring would be actually to eliminate that access point right there, but put it back on 492 and just come straight through. Am I making sense? So let's say right now, if you turned off off of 41 and you're heading south, that is 492, right? That block. You're heading south there, and you turn into your gravel drive that you built on the right, take a right turn. Instead, you just continue straight to the stop sign, turn right, and then come in a driveway.
From 492.
Okay. 492 proper, yeah.
Like across from the carpet specialist, the old carpet specialist. But why would we do that? Because frankly, the most valuable piece of property on this 5 acres is a piece that is closest to 41 and most visible at 41. And that's already a pretty narrow frontage piece right there. So if we move that road, we've got that much more area to work with in terms of developing right there. That's the most valuable real estate of this 5 acres.
So how much space would there be from the current north-south 492 to your proposed? Because it'd be perpendicular to what we have now, right? Is what you're saying? It comes off of the...
It's perpendicular, yeah.
So how much
Confused
space?
as
Is it
heck.
be like 5 feet or 20 feet from 492 north-south? How quickly of a turn?
How far going up
To
the
the
street?
west?
Yeah, how far to the
Yeah.
west would it be?
That will be dictated by the county road commission. Because they will require us to be so far away, our drive has to be a certain linear distance away from the intersection. And I forget what it is right now. I think it's a function of speed limit too.
So you'd make it a real driveway then?
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Curb, drive.
okay.
And you'd be willing to do that, is what you're saying. In exchange for the, or not for exchange, but for
Relocate.
taking that driveway there it is, you'd be willing to move that driveway and give it for, you have that property. We're not trying to put words in your
No,
mouth.
we would have a paved drive basically going from that entrance 492 to the property line, behind Michael's Pier 1
So
Goodwill, where
it
it
would
connects.
catch up. Okay, perfect. Well, that's even better.
There's actually not really any easement on that property since it was our property. It's just a driveway permit that we got
So there
to
is no
place it there.
permanent easement
No,
granted now.
it's just a driveway permit that we got there.
That's good news.
It's on it's all township property, so we just put a driveway across it.
So if Bob moved it, we would have no problem with it, probably better.
Along the Walmart entrance. Wall.
Well, that's what I was thinking, how far west would you go? Would you go right at the buffer,
Yeah.
between the properties? But that's still putting it way up there. And if you line it up with the Goodwill in that, that'd be splitting that property in half. It's not fair to him to road
Well,
it.
it's still be a private drive, but we would have the connectivity.
Access.
Think about this from a legal easement standpoint. I don't think we'd be opposed to granting them an easement. And in return, they would grant us an easement allowing our tenants and their guests
crossing theirs
access through their private
to
road
41.
out to 41.
How much of a buffer do we need between his project and Schwimmen Park?
I don't know that.
There'd have to
right
be a buffer
offhand.
between there, and then I think it can only go
You'd have
600
to look.
feet from the road, say, it's on there now to another road curve or something, curb cut or something, I forget. But
Yeah,
So
those are
other
details
people
that we'd
would
have to
figure
look up.
Yes, Dan.
I'm a little confused, but what I'm assuming is you're saying you're gonna go up 492 farther, then cut straight across to the road, or to the mall, whatever you wanna call it there. And I guess my question would be, is just exactly where you plan on hooking into at that mall, because if you're thinking of going in between Pier 1 and the rental place, that is not wide enough for two cars. That is basically designed, actually, when it was, I think when we did this, the entrance off of 492 to the Goodwill was on the Goodwill side, and the exit was on the rental side, even though people never really do it that way, but that was the intention. Those were one ways. You can't, I don't think you can put between the rental place and Pier 1, there's no way you can make that two-way traffic. And that being said, also, I go back 8-10 years ago when we had the discussion about the north side of 41, when we were told that as soon as somebody else put one more development in there, they would be forced to put that access road in. And obviously that never happened. So if this is going to be something that we are going to agree on, I would like to see it written into an agreement. I don't want to agree just because somebody says so.
I guess we, like Bob said, we'd have to find out what the road commission too is gonna allow or not allow, and how far in. And I can't imagine having it so close to the east side of the current 492 that you couldn't have a building, a house, or a shop or something there. So it'd have to be farther enough over.
Well, you're right.
And then, like you said, to try to connect. Yeah,
You're-
that
you're-
was our intent,
you're-
was just have like an alley or a driveway.
Yeah, and you're running out of connection points because there's only really the two entrances, one by Goodwill and one between. There's no other place you could widen that to make it a two-way road.
And the whole purpose of that, if you remember, and whether or not it'll happen again, nobody knows, I guess, is that Thanksgiving, Black Friday, the traffic was backed up there for hours trying to get out on 41. 2.5 hours that I know of, one person trying to get back to work from lunch. So that was our way of trying to protect our public or anybody coming through there to have another exit out of there. So whether it has to be right there, it's just being able to get out to 41 somehow. And I don't know if that means then you're on the Schwemmwood side.
Well, I think also it was a failure that, in hindsight, way back when, I don't think anybody was thinking of access roads when we got through this thing, and this was something to try to solve that problem, just like we were on the north side now, to solve that problem. And I just think that this was, like I said, it was unfortunate we couldn't get to Walmart, because that would have been the ultimate access road to get off of 492, or off of the 41, but this was the best we could do.
Yeah, personally, I'm about saving some kind of access there. I think that's important. If I'm outvoted, then I'm outvoted, but I think, along with Dan, I think that's something we need to address somehow. I think because not only the money that we've invested in it, but the reasoning to have some kind of connection. What are the other sticking points that we want to try to?
Obviously, the connection
only
fees.
way that only way you can get from the front to the back, east, north, and south, is through that alley, so to speak.
Well,
If you go any farther, did we look down at one time of taking the road all the way up to Walmart? But the
you can't
Walmart-
because of
Yeah,
the.
that's not gonna work.
The elevation.
And you can I know the concern about having the frontage on that thing, but you could still make it one way, it just cutting off, goes where it goes into Goodwill would be from there up to, that part of it would have to be there because it has to be one way in, one way out. I didn't see any other way to go into that.
Don't
Parcel.
Don't take it up as far as Pier 1, take it.
No, take it as far as the entrance, I mean, you can, basically what you'd have to have is the entrance road at the Goodwill up to the Pier 1 entrance road, or exit road, or entrance road, whichever one they make in and whichever one they make out. I guess doesn't matter. I mean, if they want to make it one way going in by Pier 1 and coming out by Goodwill, but then you'd have to go west to get back to the road going out to the highway,
So it's still
or
kind of.
out to 492.
Kind of countermands what he's trying to do, though.
Then I don't know how else we can keep the road.
It just comes to a point of how important is that road to us? How important is, and what's the alternative? How can we run that road north and south and still maintain some kind of service to them?
There is none.
You know,
That's the only way.
exactly. How much is that worth to us?
Well, it's not so much worse to us, it's what's worse to the residents. I think the access roads have been something the residents have wanted forever. And especially on the north side, but this was our only alternative we had on the south side. So I think that, and I've talked to people that love that access road. So unfortunately, it's not in the greatest shape, but, and it's, in the wintertime, I mean, people coming from Lost Creek don't have to get out on the highway to get back up to that one spot. It's all,
Yes, Bob? Sure.
I have a beautiful map here.
A rendition. Sure, that's fine.
Architectural school, So, this is an idea that, and I apologize for this here. So this is 492. But, can you see this? Because I think it's to your point. Behind Goodwill, there's a one-way drive, right?
well, it's supposed to be.
Yeah, well,
They go both ways.
It was
So-
intended to be.
here's the 5-acre parcel right in here. So the idea is, right now, the gravel road that's in comes right here and comes through, and for the record, I'm probably a daily user of that road. I appreciate, and I'm willing to commit, that we will have access from here to here. Just as a township resident, it just makes total sense. So the idea was, rather than have the drive here, we move the drive here, and this is not.
And then you have access to both sides of the
Exactly,
road.
we can, if we have buildings over here, we can just, build driveways off. But we come in, and then when you come to right here, it's a right turn only, one way out this way. And that preserves this as one way. So our drive is built to be two-way, but when you get to there, it becomes
Okay.
one way.
That's a solution.
Yeah, that looks good.
That would work.
It's perfect.
Lots of signage and arrows and
Plus,
stuff.
it's gonna be blacktop.
Yes. Which in
Right.
the
And that still,
wintertime would be.
that still gives you enough developable property. That's why I wondered how far in that would come.
And actually, if you look at it, this is probably the most efficient way, and also when you take into account like green space and, stormwater retention, we want to have if we keep the drive going all the way along here, okay, that's all that drive, so if we put a building back here, I just know intuitively, from sketching it out, we're gonna have a lot more asphalt to get someone to there than if we use this option.
And it's great access too, to both sides.
Much better.
Right.
Would that be a private drive at that point? Your
It'd be for
portion?
Could
everybody,
be.
For everybody. It'd be
This
public.
part,
Yeah.
well, legally, it would probably be private, because if it was public, we'd have to turn it over to. what do we
Road
turn it
commission.
over to,
Road
folks?
commission.
Or the county.
County.
And then their standards are such that it would probably become cost prohibitive for such a short.
I don't have a
distance.
problem with it being, but I think that's an acknowledgement, you'd have to maintain it, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
It's his advantage to do it that way, because
Yes.
if you go 66 feet.
No, I
for
think that's a
county
good
road-
idea.
No, for county road, you're gonna go 66 feet. And it'll take up a heck of a lot more property.
And it's not needed.
It's
not
like,
needed in
it's
this
like the
case.
road right by Range Bank up there in the township.
Yeah.
That's Range Bank's road. It's private.
I think.
Private is open to anybody.
I think the proposal is worth following.
Yep. That looks very.
Yeah. So if that could be part of the contract.
I could accept that if it's part of the contract.
Yeah, I was following, actually,
Yeah.
See it in the contract.
it made sense to me.
Bullshit to me then. The other part is gonna be.
Walk away without my shoes.
Okay, so the fees and stuff came up. Is that something we want to address too then? The part about, I was most concerned about the enterprise funds. We have a little bit of, although we have the ordinances in place, we have issues with site plan reviews and the fire inspections, permitting fees. How compromising do we want to be?
Well, you need to review the law first.
Well, I was just kind of wondering what, is this a sticking point here? Are we absolutely no way?
Well, Roger's point is a valid point. Point being made with regard to what you can and you can't legally do, constitutional issues and a variety of other things that really hasn't even been looked at yet.
It's a valid point to the extent that that's not a researched opinion. That's my initial impression after looking through it. But I have researched it in fairly similar contexts in the past. But I don't want to give you the impression that I've done an A to Z comprehensive analysis of it. That's my initial shot
We need
from
to
the
put
hip,
that
if you will.
in your court and let you
Okay.
figure out what we can and can't do.
Don't we have
What-
another case or something's come up under certain circumstances as far as fees and stuff like that?
We got another one coming up,
And also, we just spent $290,000 on dark store stuff, and so we just have to be careful how we proceed.
Yes, Dan?
Well, and I've said this all along, that I want to get this sold, but then again, I don't want to set a precedence where we're waiving fees, because then anybody can come in here and say, well, hey, you gave it to them, why can't you give it to me? Myers can come in here and say, well, waive all our fees. You want us to build. I just can't do that.
Well, and communities do make different kinds of concessions, whether it's tax abatements or whatever, to get builders to come in, so it's not an unusual question.
But not townships.
Right.
We cannot do that.
But,
We're more
Give
limited.
any kind of tax abatements or anything like that, we can't.
you can come up with something as far as
No, it's,
taxes, because,
the Charter Township Act
oh,
says
charter,
you
okay.
cannot.
Because Sands just
Yep.
made agreement with Reinhardt, and they agreed on that, but they weren't chartered.
Yeah,
They're not chartered.
Yes, John?
I think we've kind of witnessed something that's encouraging, and that's that the petitioner is interested in cooperating with the township. And while I wanted a waiver of, or a deletion of item 8, I think that we could, recognizing this proposal to accommodate the road exiting and out of there as a cooperative venture, that might be worth some negotiations on the impact fee. And so what I'm saying is I'm open to some consideration of that in the contract if the board is willing to do that. It's the rest of it that is very difficult to accept, and for reasons that have been expressed. We can't give it to one and not give it to everyone. So deletion of the rest of it is what I've asked for, but I'm more than willing to consider some consideration of the impact fee being reduced, recognizing that the petitioner is willing to accommodate us on a road problem that's a serious one. That's my point.
Because I'd like to see these fees enumerated too. Excuse me. How much that amounts to. Ernie, did you have something?
I think going back to the fees, I'm real concerned with that, especially the water and sewer tap fees, because we've talked about that. That's built right into our budget, when we're projecting out into the future as to what the cost is gonna be overall within the township, and that we take in consideration all future development and that, and how that's gonna affect all users within the township and that, so. Because if we waive this or modify it somehow, then our budget and our future planning is gonna also have to be redone, and that, as to how we're gonna do it all.
So if we look at, if there's, what, half a dozen or 8 different things that are listed, maybe 10, we find out from Roger that 6 of these we can't do anything with, and if we have them itemized with the amounts, you know, let's say the site plan fees are $1,000 or whatever. Maybe that's, if there are board members who feel that the price is somewhere different than they were thinking, maybe that's where we make some of our adjustments. If we're limited on the fees, but we want to make some kind of a gesture, maybe it's, you know, doesn't have to be here, be somewhere else. Dan?
Well, as a board, I know we can do that, but I think that before we decide to do any giving up anything, I think we need to discuss it with the planning commission, because they're the ones that have set the rules and regulations and
Well, yeah, it's going to be a Roger decision, though, with the ordinances,
with the, yeah, right.
what our flexibility is.
Yeah, right, with that part of it, but before we start giving away anything else, I think the planning commission needs to have some kind of an indication of what we're looking at.
Because if it's built into the ordinances, we can't arbitrarily just do it. We have to go through the whole procedure to modify the ordinance.
I take it.
Which is now, it's not a 10-day thing. We're talking
Well, we'd have to do it for everybody.
for everybody, and that, you're talking anywhere from, 30 to 60 days, by the time we get all the notices out and everything back in and that. It's not something we can do overnight, because of the way the ordinances, we have to follow in the state and that. That's all been predetermined.
Well, and we were looking at a rate study, asking if we wanted to have more rates,
Yeah.
or different rates, or increased rates. We haven't really tackled that yet. Yes, Pete?
I think the first step we'd probably do is get a survey done, so we know exactly what we got and where it goes. And
Yeah, wait for Roger first. Yeah, I think a survey's a good idea.
that should be one of the steps that
I'm
we
all
have to
for
get done.
surveys. Any property I've dealt with,
But I
that's the
think
first thing I
each
do.
one of us need to get our concerns to Roger, so he can look at them all and put them together to meet what we consider our concerns in that. They may be nothing when you get through with it too, so.
That sounds reasonable, Roger.
Well, I
You can
think
each-
I've got
You think you got enough?
I think I've got a pretty good idea just from this discussion.
Okay, we don't need to get you anything individually, unless something else comes up, unless you've got more ideas.
I think probably the fastest way to move this along is for Roger to distill down what he has and send you out a draft to take a look at.
See what we think.
Turnaround time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep,
It may take a little research.
it will.
Okay. Do we have a time frame roughly, just so that the prospective
ASAP?
Yesterday?
Well, not tomorrow, obviously, but like 2 weeks, next week? Just
Oh, no, less than 2 weeks.
Okay. Just so I have.
Considerably less than 2
So
weeks.
they have an idea.
It'll depend on a few other fires that are on my desk, but it'll elevate to the let's say it'll elevate pretty much to the top of the stack.
Randy, did you have something too? Or did I see Pete's hand up?
Well, one point, number 3 is the purchase price. We've not talked about that either, and that would probably be something we'd talk about right away. So I guess I want to hear the board's comment on the purchase price of $430,000.
Ernie, go ahead.
Being treasurer, I always have to bring up the cost figures in that. 430 sounds a lot, but looking back on the appraised value on the 212, was a maximum of 500,000 they were talking about. That was 2012. I think the price of 430 to me is low. And I'm always wanting to maximize the most I can for the residents of the township, that overall. So I'm not really satisfied with 430 in that. I may not win them, I may lose a lot of them, but I do bring up the idea in that. I have no problem going up to 575 on that. And I'm looking at, the land within this area here is at 175,000 per acre. That we do have a road over there. We do have access to all the utilities for that property and that. So I don't think 575 is I should say 475 is too far off in that.
There's a big difference
Say
now.
475 or
So you're saying 475?
You said 575.
This isn't an auction.
There's no option, no.
So that's your recommendation or suggestion. Pete?
I would like to have Bob take a look at that road and see what what his developments are, and see if something that's really you can live with, you know, what you just showed us. Just take a good look and see what we don't know what you want to put in there, but just make sure that would, if you said you're gonna do it, and, you know, that serve a lot of purposes here, so as long as we can do something like that, that'd be probably be pretty good. As long as it don't goof up your plans, so. And if you say you can do it, we expect it done, and that'll leave another problem, so.
So are you thinking you're saying leave the purchase price the way it is? 'cause
No,
of the
I didn't
road?
say nothing
I don't
about
want to put
purchase.
words in your mouth, but we were
Oh,
talking
no.
about the purchase price.
No, I know, but I wanted to get that out there
Well,
just to
that's
make
fine.
sure that he knows that, and, no, I just think it's 430, we could do a little bit better, but,
Throw out a number?
no.
Yes, Randy?
Just a quick question for Steve. Did the road commission give you any indication of when they may get that easement issue resolved? Because it'll answer the question for the survey as well, because that's really the only question, is where's that road right away?
Basically, what you're gonna do is probably try to set up a meeting maybe with you and I coming up here to figure out what we're gonna do.
Okay.
Because we met with Neil Lynch a few weeks ago. Neil,
Neil, yeah.
There's some cross quitclaim deeds and deeds that have to go back and forth on it, frankly.
Okay.
But we don't wanna do anything until I think we get that resolved.
Yeah. And that would really answer any survey question, per se, because we have a survey. It's just what they did with that right-of-way when they moved the road.
Right. Well, I think that right away, that has been resolved. That area has been resolved on
Okay.
that side of the street.
Okay.
It's the side. for
It's the east
town
side.
hall. Yes, it's the east side that way, the question.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. But that will be resolved coming up in the near future, but I think we just take our time, make sure we negotiate with the right.
So Bob's question then on the survey is on the north side? Is that because of
This is
the,
on
because of the
east
road?
side Of the road. that
Okay.
side. The question that we're taking, what's happening is they're taking away from the other side, the east side of the road, not the west side of the road.
So that's why he wants
They
to.
said that intersection has been redone more times in the last 20 years than any other intersection in the county. But again, when you order a survey or whatever, that will be clarified at that point. Or the surveyor should be in contact with Neil to make sure that they're on the same page too.
So you're still thinking we still should have a survey, even though the road commission would determine that?
Well, that's just the one spot that they're determining when, it's the rest of the property that.
That's why I asked if, so it isn't just that
They
area.
still will need to know, whoever pays for it, that's the question, I guess, but I still feel there has to be a survey to know what exactly there is out there. I mean, we've heard anywhere, it's approximately 5 acres, do we know it's 5, is it 4.95, is it 5.25, we don't know. You know, and where do those points go to? Like you said, how far close to, where.
Swimming and parking.
Is the property. So we need to find out.
Yes, Dan.
I suppose talking about the money now, I'm looking from the standpoint that since they're willing to do this road and maintain this road and actually improve this road, if they weren't willing to do that, I think we'd have a sticking point as to whether we have to keep that road, we have to maintain that road, we have to improve the road. I'm willing to accept, well, I shouldn't say, I'd be willing to go 450,000. That'd be my.
450?
Because again, they are taking over the road, which to me has always been an important issue anyway.
Thoughts, John? You don't have to, you look like you wanted to say something.
I always look like I want to say something. I'm pleased that there's some numbers being thrown out. I think the figure of 450 or the other being offered at 475, I think both of those are well within the value of that property. There are, I think when you have some knowledge of what other properties around are going for, those are still very good numbers for us, for the buyer. I really believe that. So anywhere in that range is acceptable to me. I do think it needs to be a little bit more than 430. And I think 450 is a good number. I think 475 is still a good number for the buyer. And if you're looking for comments from the board, that'd be my comment at this time. I could accept either one of those. With this piece of property. And I think we've got indication certainly of a willingness to do something in a cooperative spirit with the township. And I would love to see that area get developed and welcome in more and more people into our community.
Randy, you had some thoughts?
Well, not really thoughts. I agree with John and I agree with Dan. I don't want to restate what's already been said. I think I could live with 450 or 475. I think 450 if the road is included somewhere, that we have written guarantee on that road. I think I could live with 450. That's where I stand.
Well, I think it's, okay, go ahead, Ernie.
I'm going back to 18, and I'm getting real confused in that. To me, we set up our realtor, which is Steve, and that's who we're paying to do the job whenever we sell. I'm really concerned with splitting this. I don't think that's part of the township's responsibility to do this and that.
It's not, you don't have to worry, that's something I agreed with Bob. Bob suggested that, he's a realtor himself. I've agreed to give a portion of my commission to him. It's from me.
I understand that, but it says the seller shall pay all said real estate in this, by this, seller directs and instructs the title company to split all fees. To me, I don't want to get the township involved in splitting us all up. How you and Bob work it out, I don't really care.
That's fine, just use it as a regular 6% and Bob and I will work it out. Right?
That's just standard practice today in commercial real estate purchase sale agreements to clearly state definitively in the purchase sale agreement how broker commissions are being paid.
The bottom line for the township is
It's a
7% and it doesn't grow.
It's the same 6%.
So if,
As long as we don't get involved with how to split and anything else, it's all taken care of in it, that's it.
What he's doing, Ernie, is just spelling it out.
You don't want to write 2 checks, is what you're saying.
I don't want to write 2
You
checks,
won't.
no.
You
I
won't.
want to write 1 check.
There are actually reasons why you want that in there and spelled out.
6.
If that's occurring.
Okay.
That was not a legal concern that I had there. I think
Okay.
I don't have a legal issue with that, in other words.
More
I
transparent.
have one copy, I can't find it. As far as time frame in here, you hit Montana State. How did,
Because our attorney made a mistake, he's based on
I figured that because I went back to the end. It didn't make sense. I saw who was on the end was Montana, so, and that. So I had a feeling that somehow came together and that, didn't know how.
So the price, until we know exactly how big that is, not that, 20,000 or 40,000 or whatever difference, but I don't know that we can have an exact price even to write in here until we know exactly how big that property is. It could be 4 3/4, it could be 5.5
What
acres.
else you're agreeing to?
Yeah, so you don't know. If we wanted to put a per acre price in here, so I mean, as far as me giving an opinion on how much it should be,
I think you just set a price and whatever it comes back with, if it's 4.75, it's 4.75, if it's 5.25, it's 5.25. I think we just set a
the
price.
a parcel price?
Parcel price,
Okay.
period. I think that would eliminate a lot to walk away from here and know.
Knowing what
where
money.
it stands.
Okay. Do we want a consensus on the price so that Roger can type it in?
I think it'd be better for Bob too, if we knew what the price would be.
You have some other issues that will be coming up that may affect your price.
I know, weighing things in.
Because Randy said he wanted to address it before. That was one of the issues, so I was looking for, how do you want to do that? What are you thinking? Since it was your point, Randy.
Well, I agree with Dan. I think if it's going the low end of that 450, it should be addressed in there about that road somehow. So we don't end up with a situation like the other place where we didn't have anything in writing. So I think that has to be for the residents of us and for everyone, so we're protected.
So you're saying you'd like to see 450 with the inclusion of spelling out the road.
Yes.
Randy?
Well, you're asking Roger to do some research on waiver of fees and other things that are gonna impact
How
the
can you
price
come with
as
a
well.
price?
So I don't know how you could talk about a price right now until you have that information.
That's what I said before. If there's something in some of those fees that we can wiggle on, or if we can't, if we find that all 10 of those, or whatever, however many there are, we don't have any wiggle room, then maybe it affects the price. Well, let's start with Roger. What do you think? Or are you looking for a number tonight?
If we wanted to get a price out there, I was just willing to get the price out there. I mean, sure. You know, that's just, you know, rather than going back through emails back and forth and what we think would be a price and what, I mean, we're in a discussion group, so. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, if you don't want to give out a price, that's fine, but I kind of gave my opinion and that's where, nothing's going to change in my opinion, one way or another.
Well, if we set it, if you want to throw out like 450 and say it would be contingent on, because it doesn't have to be a motion, we can do something if we want to with a special meeting. This isn't a work session. If you want to say 450 with determined on whether or not we have any flexibility in changing fees,
Well,
if that's going to alter the price
Wait a
or not.
minute.
Go ahead, John.
I was of the opinion that at least one member of the board asked that the item 8 be deleted. I've again found reason to be concerned that maybe the impact fee, which is the bulk of it, could be the one item that could be waived in some way. But that's to be determined as we move along. That's because of the willingness to include the road and maintain it and remove it from our burden. But the rest of it, if you don't, I would warn the community or the board from waiving all the rest of them, because as Trustee Pompo has said, the next person that comes up is going to want the same thing, and everyone that follows has a right to ask for that. And that changes our business. That changes the way that we conduct ourselves. And so I think it should be deleted from there, but one consideration would be the impact fee, which is the one that's the burden of all of them. So I don't really think there's any reason to go after evaluating what all of the rest of the fees are worth. Let's just delete the damn thing. And then
Yeah, I
come
mean,
back with
generally, impact
considering
fees are,
some relief on
like
the
ecological
impact
thing,
fee.
environmental, if you've got those types of things, but I'm not sure.
So you're saying 450,000, no fees eliminated?
No.
Well, I think you're getting confused. We don't have an impact fee. All of the fees are impact fees. There's not even
no,
a total impact.
What is the impact fee? I guess I'm not familiar with an impact fee. I'm familiar with connections and
Yeah,
everything else.
we don't have an impact fee. We have site plan fees, those are all the impact fees.
Combination of all of them together, I think that was the
Well, it's a
consensus.
combination of
It's
all.
listed
and
separately.
Then it has to do with everything.
Right.
If you're eliminating everything, there is no impact fee.
That's what I'm saying. We're talking about eliminating an impact fee, but not the others. I
was
mean,
confused at what
they're all
fee was,
impact
so was
fees.
Bob, so
Just
Go ahead.
generally speaking, impact fees refer to environmental impact fees with certain types of transactions. I'm not sure that that's, Mr. Mahaney would certainly has forgotten more than I ever knew about those types of things with developments, but I'm not sure that that's going to be anything that we have control over, even if that is an issue on this particular parcel.
I think we still need to find out what we can and can't eliminate. In that paragraph, it's kind of a waste of time.
I think you need to assume that there's going to be very little that can be, and just move forward here. So time is of the essence, and if I come up with something different, I will promptly notify you, but I will be somewhat surprised if I come up with something different than that.
So yes, Dan?
Well, to clarify the whole thing, then I would say the same as John. I mean, I would agree to the 450 as long as the roads include, and we eliminate 8.
Eliminate 8? Okay.
There.
Ernie,
What do you mean by eliminating 8?
striking the paragraph.
Waiver of all the fees.
Just waiver of?
Yeah.
Eliminating the waiver request. Just totally taking it out is what he's saying.
So you're gonna make a counter offer, and then it's up to Bob to
Right. Right.
figure out if he wants to accept it or make another counter offer.
Correct.
Right.
At least we get it on the table, Bob.
But I think for our own benefit, I think we should find out what the costs are.
Yeah, I think we still need to know what.
we can or
what
can't
we
do
can
at
or
the same
can't
time.
do.
Well, what are the
I
actual
don't think it,
costs?
I seriously don't think well,
It's a waste of time.
I seriously don't think we want to be able to do anything. I think the fees are in place. I don't think that we should do any negotiation of the fees. They're there. And they're there for somebody who wants to open a little corner store, or they're there for somebody who wants to open a Myers. It's a fee's a fee. So I just don't, I know we got into this when Lost Creek came, that we waived the taxes for 35 years, which to me was the biggest mistake we ever did in the world, but, that, I don't want to get back into that kind of a mode again. I don't want to, again, it's the planning commission that's come up with these fees, and the board has agreed to these fees, and every year we agree to these fees, and I don't want to play with fees. They're there for everybody. Everybody pays the same, so.
Yeah, and your fees may be different depending upon what the development is that goes into that,
I was gonna say that.
that goes into that piece of property.
Because if you have a fee for hooking up a store, it's got a lot different if you put condos in there, because the usage for a store is a lot less than that.
I agree, but the fee is still there.
Right. The fires especially, I mean, how much fire, how thick, big that line's gonna be to whatever he's gonna put in there, we don't know that at this
Yeah,
time.
he knows what he wants to do there. We just don't know yet.
Yeah.
So, Ernie, something else?
I had a good thought, but it's gone.
Lost it? Well, okay.
I'll bet.
So we're thinking 450 is what we're recommending, with striking number 8, not even having anybody research it, just say no way, and that he would put the road in as he said. Right? Is that
That's my
kind of the
consensus.
consensus?
We'll give that, if that's the board's consensus, give that to Bob and let him roll that around and have a, see what he
That's
does.
Richard, helped him.
And
So we can have Roger type something up so we can see that, or is that even necessary?
Yes, it is, and I will work with Mr. Pelto on that also. And
Have a
that
clean copy.
can be done fairly quickly.
So do we want to try to, do you just give it to him? or do we need to present it at a meeting at some point? When, say like,
Well, you're gonna wanna look at it before
right, right.
That'd be nice.
Yeah.
it
But I
goes.
mean, do we have to have a meeting to present it, and you can type it up, send it to us, see what we think? Do we need to, discuss it again?
Yes, you need
Okay.
to basically approve the format of it
Before you give it to
Sell
them?
to make
property.
sure that I haven't misinterpreted what you've agreed to, or even for that matter, that once you see it, that you say, oh, we didn't even discuss this raises this new issue. So,
Okay.
yeah, you need to
So
look
we
at
would
it
just
before it
have to,
goes.
if-
That can be another.
Essentially, we actually give it to me, I get it over to Bob for his review. So instead of saying, yes, it's okay, then I don't want, instead of saying, or coming to me. I
That
go to Bob,
works.
Bob says it's okay, then it goes back to you for your final, instead of going to you before it goes to Bob, because then we're back in the same point that we're starting right now. We're nowhere. We want to make sure Bob's on the same page as Roger, you, and he is. You see what I'm saying? So I think it should go.
So we could
Roger
look
to
at it
me,
the same
me to
time?
Bob. Bob gives the okay, then it goes back to you for final approval.
Well, because we've made recommendations, and you've made some recommendations, so I think we'd like to see what that is in.
Oh, yeah,
in
but
whole.
I'm saying that
So if we get it at the
nothing's-
same time,
Yeah, nothing's solid until you approve it at the end. But I think we need Bob's okay on it even before it goes back to you.
so what I was kind of thinking is, how do we structure this? If you, at the end of the week or first of next week, you have something, if we have to call a special meeting or something, we'll just have to be, or wait till the next, I just wanted to make sure we know.
Yeah, it needs to come back to you for your review before it goes anywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, you folks need to be the ones to say, here's our counter.
Right. So if we have to set up a special meeting to do that.
It would
that's
take
all I'm-
minutes, could be a lunchtime, could be anything.
Yeah, 'cause we need 18 hours or whatever, right?
We need 18 hours for a special meeting, so it doesn't take that long.
Yeah. So if Roger gets this done by Friday or Monday, something like that, we can, you again.
I'm going to be a real pain, aren't I? I just want to clarify that one issue also about the survey, that if they
Yeah.
back out, that we get that comes out of the $10,000 or whatever is given in there.
The earnest money, yep.
Want to make sure that's in there.
Okay, Ernie?
That's the thought I had not lost before was on the survey. Do we want to start the process to go through it? Is it beneficial to us to get the survey done for now or into the future? I'm asking the question.
Yeah, wouldn't know that answer. That's a Roger question. I suppose.
Bob can address that as far as on the survey. As far as on the survey.
As far as the cost of surveying,
No, I'm just, not only the cost, but the beneficial for the township to do it now and into the future. So if something happens now that this does not go through, it's there, and we move forward. I don't know how well the description of the property is right now at this point in time. I have no idea in that, so the survey will be,
Yeah, it was surveyed when the road was moved. So,
The description is fine and it is what it is. The question is, then boots on the ground, where is that description? That's what you'll accomplish essentially with a survey, and that would be a benefit,
okay, that's.
no
that's-
matter who
mark it
you
out.
That's all I'm
sell
asking
it
that.
to essentially.
But we still have to wait until the road commission puts their 2 cents in.
Not for this side.
Not
No,
for the
not
survey,
for this
we don't.
side.
We
That's
don't?
the east
I don't
side.
think for this side.
No, it's the east side that there's a question, the east side where the hall is. Alta survey, what does that stand for?
American Land and Title.
Okay, so it's basically a standard survey, it's not a special survey. Yeah, so it just meets their criteria. Doesn't necessarily have to be a specific surveyor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's just a standard survey. It meets that criteria.
Checklist,
Yeah.
you check off everything that you want to see on this survey. Usually it runs the gamut from boundaries to utilities,
Storm service.
easements, storm, everything
Any
is on it.
improvements.
Any improvements that have been made to the property. will
As
show
well
up.
as any legal,
Any legal.
anything that burdens the property as far as easements, et cetera.
Standard surveys, not a specialty survey per se.
Okay.
Yes, John?
We're at the end of this meeting, I think, but I just want to mention that I think that if you were to look at Bozeman, Montana,
Bozeman, Montana.
you probably would find impact,
Fees?
you would find, and that wouldn't have anything to do with the ones that are mentioned here. There are communities that have that, and I've read about it in the planning magazines that go to our planner and to our planning commission. It's something that's suggested, and I thought that's what was being talked about, was that would be a rather serious, all-inclusive cost. And it would, and I hope, as long as we can avoid it, I think we should.
Okay, do you have everything you need, Roger, do you think?
I think so.
No questions for us? Okay. I think we're good. I think we could just,
Bob and them have any questions?
oh, did you have anything else? Anything?
No, we'll look forward to receiving your counter and seriously consider it. Turn around with response, absolute response. We appreciate your time.
You too, thanks for coming. Thanks for putting up with my noise, I'm sorry. We have no new business. Public comment, if he's already done. Anything the board wants to add?
We have a meeting tomorrow night, right?
Thank you.
Thanks, folks.
You got two meetings tomorrow.
I don't even think we need a motion to adjourn, we can just
Well,
adjourn.
we can, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We are adjourned,
Two meetings tomorrow night.
6:23.
I think we wrote me one at 6 o'clock.